Disclaimer.
The thoughts and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily the views of Tash, Becky, or Be Your Best You podcast.
Hey there, lovely people. Welcome to Be Your Best You with Tash and Becky, your go-to hangout for all things spiritual, subconscious, and downright magical. We're here to sprinkle a little mystical wisdom into your everyday life and help you level up your reality.
Picture this as your cosmic coffee date, where we chat about the unseen world, blend in some psychology vibes, and stir up the subconscious magic. Get ready to be the queen of your own reality, live a life that lights you up, and have a blast doing it.
So grab your latte or your tea and let's dive into another episode of Be Your Best You, where the mystical meets the mundane and your best life awaits.
Cheers to creating magic together.
Let's do this.
Hi, lovely people.
Hi.
We just wanted to pop on before we get started on our episode to ask you if you would mind, if you haven't done so already, please could you rate and review our podcast? If you're not already, could you make sure that you're following us on Spotify, Apple, or any podcast player that you listen to us on, so you can make sure that you get notified every week when a new episode comes out. You never know when you might need to hear it. It could be perfect timing. And also, don't forget, you can watch us on YouTube as well. And if you watch us over there, don't forget to subscribe. Again, you'll get notified with all the new and latest episodes.
And also, don't forget to share with all your friends.
Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate all your support. We appreciate you listening to us every week. Thank you so much.
You.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Be Your Best You with Tash.
And Becky, the guest edition. And today we're talking to Debi Cox.
Debbie is a health or nutrition coach, specifically focused on working with helping people reverse chronic illnesses through their diet, which is really cool. She works specifically with people with type 2 diabetes and PCOS, but she works with everybody really just to help them get their diet under control and help them be the healthiest version of themselves without the struggle of diets and it having to be hard and boring.
Yes, love that.
We go into really the kind of the mindset, the deeper part of it behind the food as well, because obviously, you know, Debbie can tell us the foods that are good to eat and not to eat. But what we really spoke about was kind of on a deeper level around how we treat ourselves and the way that we talk to ourselves around food. It's really insightful conversations.
It will get you thinking.
Yeah, it has definitely us. Yeah. Well, joy. And today we have on the show Debbie. Debbie, welcome.
Hi, Debbie.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me along.
Thank you so much for coming. So, before we dig into everything that you have to share with us and the audience, Debbie, could you just tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what it is that you're actually currently doing in the world right now?
Okay, I'm a nutritional health coach, so I help people with their food choices to help improve their health. I think that's probably the most succinct way of saying it. And everyone's very different and got different things that they will need, and it's working out what for each person will work to improve their health. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, amazing. And is there a particular type of person or particular people that you work with and help with this?
Currently, at the moment, I've been working with people with type 2 diabetes as a particular sort of favourite of mine, but it's things like polycystic ovarian syndrome and just generally, well-being and health, really. How can we get ourselves to the healthiest position that we can? And for me, the easiest way of doing that is, and one of the ways of starting that is with your food. What food choices are you making? What effect is that having on the body? Because I think if I look back on my education historically, I didn't know really I thought I knew a lot about food, but actually when I started to change my world and my dietary habits, that's when I really learned what was going on in my body and why. And I think for all of my clients, it's the knowing the why. Why am I doing this? What effect is this having? And I think that's the important key that I missed out on. And I didn't really understand it until I did the training.
Yeah, I love that, because again, it's this same old thing that we talk about all the time. It's empowering the other
Yes.
person, isn't it? And that's what I really love doing in my work. I don't just like advise people on what they should do and you do this and do that. No, I'm like, this is why I'm telling you to do it. This is how your
Yeah.
mind works, and this is why I'm asking you to do this. And then people can just be like, oh, I get it. And you can use your initiative more, can't you? You're not kind of reliant on all the information that we're being bombarded with
True.
at the moment, and then just thinking,
Yes.
well, that person's telling me to do that, that person me to, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
When you understand why you're doing what you're doing, you can then kind of make better, more informed choices, can't you?
Yeah, and I think, I remember when I first started this, and you put together like a business plan, and the bank were like, "It's not a great business model, is it really?" And I was like, "Well, why is it not a great business model?" Well, because you don't have a product to then carry on selling. And I said, "Yeah, but this is about empowering people to understand what's going on. I can help them for a time, and they can always come back and I can always help, but it's about empowering them to then carry on their own journey themselves." Anyway, so it's interesting how the bank and I had a very different view of what we thought a good business model was. I mean, I understand what they were saying, there isn't an ongoing like product, I suppose. But actually, there comes to a point where, and I will say, there comes to a point where someone will say to me, "Look, I'm great, I'm grand, I know what I'm doing. We've come to the end of this particular road." But what I always have open is I'm always contactable. So if there is something you're confused about or some new information's come out, then we can have a chat about that later on down the road. So it's not that I just abandon people and go, "That's it, you've done your 6 weeks, bye-bye." It's not about that. And actually a lot of my clients now, 3 or 4 years down the road, we still have contact with one another. And for me, what's lovely is I see the changes. So I see where it's gone, rather than just saying, "Okay, we've done whatever, we've done we've had this, we've done this, you kind of know what you're doing." I want to know what happens next, right? So for me, it's lovely when I can see how the changes have affected their world. And it's not just their world, it's actually quite often their family as well. There's a massive knock-on effect, and it's nice to be available and around to see that actually happening.
Yeah, I love
That's amazing,
that.
isn't
Yeah.
it?
And it's just, I think it's like you said, like with you in the bank, it's not a good business model. I just think, people in our kind of field, when I say that, I mean kind of out of the mainstream, the alternative kind of, that's how we're all wanting to work, isn't it? It's a bit of a more of a
Yes.
heart-led type way of working, because we're caring about what we're delivering, we're caring about the person, and we're not necessarily looking at what works well on a business
Interesting
plan.
that's
I
their
mean,
point of view, isn't it? Where they're coming from.
no, it was. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really was. And I was like, I went away from that meeting thinking, "Okay, what do I need to think about here?" And I thought, "Do you know what? Actually, I'm at the stage of my life now that I want to enjoy what I'm doing. Okay, so as long as I've got enough money to pay the bills, I get the buzz out of, and yes, I've got to pay the bills, of course I have, but I get the buzz out of watching what happens next, and actually people regaining their health and being in control of what's going on as well." And I think that's the other thing. I think, and you are right, actually, there's a lot of noise out there. And lots of people saying, "Don't do it like that, do it like this, don't do it like this, do it like that." And so many of the people that I work with are really confused. It's like, well, A told me this and B's told me this, and I don't know, because they're completely opposing to one another. So what does that actually mean then? So it's trying to break that down. That's what I try and do for people and go, okay, and the other thing is, I think one of the things I try and do is tailor it to each person. So we have the fundamentals of what it looks like, but actually, say for example, I've got somebody who is lactose intolerant. I can't be saying to them, "Well, you need to have this, you need to have meat," because that's never going to work. So it's about listening, and also to what food choices they like as well. So working with what they do kind of like and what's going to work for them. Because if I'm saying to someone, for example, had a lady a couple of days ago, couldn't stand mushrooms, okay? Now, if I was saying to her, "No, you need to have mushrooms every day," it's never going to work, is it? So it's like, well, if you don't like mushrooms, we don't have mushrooms. There's other things that we can have, do you see? So it's that as well. It's tailoring it to what's going to work for the individual. Okay, and not doing
Yeah.
this blanket, you've got to do this and you've got to do it this way.
Because this is what, you know, when you, again, back to this whole, there's information out there and there's experts in all the fields telling you to do this and don't do that. I think we forget that we are, yes, we're all human beings, but we're all so different and so unique, and our bodies work in different ways, and our minds and our thoughts work in different ways, which means that has an effect on how our bodies work. And just this, it's just this huge field of like,
and we're just taught to follow what everybody else is doing,
and it doesn't. And I love that you work like this. You work in the same way as me, and it's like getting people kind of back to trusting themselves and using their intuition as well, and knowing that we don't have to listen to everything everyone says, and it's just like what actually works for me and my body. And I just think that's brilliant.
And do you find a lot of people are disconnected from their body, and you bring them back in? That's a big
and
thing,
they've
isn't it?
lost. I think as well, the other thing that I see a lot of, and I know that I was guilty of this myself, so I can understand what how it happened. I think, so if I use myself as the example, I lost my ability to believe in what I was feeling and thinking, and I would outsource it to other people. Okay, so I know they're the experts, so they must know more than I do. And then actually, when it came down to it was, well, I know my body better than anyone knows my body. So I'm the expert in me, and I'm saying something is this, and you're saying no. But actually, time and time again, it proved to me that I was the expert in my body, and I did know what was really going on. And I think it was learning that, and then and again empowering people to believe in that in themselves. You know, if you're saying this, then let's explore this, because you are the expert in your body. And then, you know, and giving them that's back again. Well, not giving it to them, but explaining to them, but actually believing what you're feeling, believing who you are, and believing the way you like things to be done, you know, or what you do and what you don't like.
Yeah.
So much more than just diet, isn't it, that you're doing for them? So much more.
Yeah.
You're lighting them up, basically, switching them back on.
I think as well, there's a lot of, for me, and one of the things that I unpick quite early on really is there's quite a lot of negative language around food. Okay, so I hear this a lot. I've been naughty, I've been bad, I've been this, I've been that, and I'm like, okay, can we have a little dig into the naughty, bad? I've been this, I've been that. You just made a different choice at a different time. When you made that choice, you probably were thinking, now you understand what the food's doing. You knew it wasn't going to be, you know, enriching you and nourish. You knew that. But are you naughty and are you bad, really? And it's quite interesting when you start to unpick that for them. It's not really naughty and, you know, not naughty and bad. And I think there's a lot of, so it's unpicking that as well, I think.
And that's so important, isn't it? Because obviously from my side of the work that I do, which is where I'm primarily working with the mind and the subconscious mind and the thoughts there, I'm saying the exact same thing to people when I'm working with them around food. Like, we have to watch our language and our narrative around food and our eating behaviors, because that is perpetuating the problem, the shame spiral, all of that kind of stuff. But also, you know, our bodies listen, our cells like listen to our thoughts, their vibrations and their frequencies. And if you're, you know, as you're eating that donut, like we've done an episode around this, haven't we? As you're eating that donut and you're going, you're terrible, like this is disgusting, how can you be eating this donut, this is going to make you so fat. Your body is listening to that, and you will store the fat and all the things. It does make a difference. So I just think that's really this is like a really important point, and I love that you work with that with your ladies as well, or your clients.
And I think the other thing about it is as well is I said, listen, what is the point? So if we use the donut, okay, if you're going to eat that donut, eat the donut and enjoy the donut, right? Enjoy it. What is the point of eating the donut and then and then having all that negative self-talk about the donut? If you're going to do it and enjoy it, and then move on. And then the next meal is a different meal. Okay, it's a different choice, because actually that's almost that. Well, it is. It's the worst combination. If you're going to eat something that you know is not going to be very nourishing, and you're going to beat yourself up for it, it's kind of the worst combo, really. So.
Absolutely. And, you know, I do truly think that when you, because I try and practice this as much as I can. And actually, I think this is something that I've always naturally done. So I was quite fortunate. But if I'm going to eat like, I like cake.
She does.
If I know I'm going to eat cake, I know I'm going to eat it because I want it and I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to like savor and relish and appreciate every mouthful of cake.
Yeah.
But what that also, and that's great in that moment anyway, but what that also I've found helps me do is that in the moments where that cake's then you know, I've had my slice of cake, it's the next day and that cake is sitting out on the side, and we all know like some of the cake or whatever it is that's your weakness starts calling your name from the cupboard. It's like, come and eat me. At that point, I know this, if I eat that cake, I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to savor it. I'm not in that same mindset that I was the day before. So don't eat it then because you really don't want it. And it really helped me understand what was, I actually just want this cake and that's great, and what was a behavior pattern, or I'm a comfort eating pattern, or just being downright greedy. Like, you know.
And we're all of those things some of the time. And that's the other thing. So it's interesting actually, because at the place where I work, people hide food from me. It's hilarious, right? So they'll watch me go by and I see them all hiding stuff under their desks, and it's just like, what are you doing? Yeah, but you know, I know you're really good. You're really good. And I went, hang on, you know, this is not about like, you know, your choices are your choices. Please do not feel that when I walk through, you've got to hide your food from me. You know, that's not what this is about, you know, your choices. And I said, and also the other thing is, sometimes I don't always, every time. I think there's another misnomer that every meal of mine must be truly magical. Well, guess what? Life doesn't happen like that. And some of my meals, sometimes if I'm in this, are not magical. They're not going to be, you know, the most nourishing meal because of my circumstance, time, where I'm at and what I'm doing. So, you know, we all do it. And I think that's the other thing about it. But it is funny how, like I said, they hide food from me. So I've had to encourage them, please don't do that. You know, I'm
hilarious.
That's not what this is about.
No. So, Debbie, before we kind of dig into more specifics of how you actually help people kind of with these chronic illnesses, I'm really interested to hear your backstory and see how you got, what happened with you. How did you get to doing this work where you are now?
Okay, bit of a long story. I will try and keep it as brief as I can. My mum got cancer when I was 20. Sorry, when I was 19. And I you know, I sadly had to watch her pass away. And I remember thinking, you know, I don't want this to be my world. And actually, in fact, my mum's family, all of them have been very, very unwell and had their latter years not so good, really. So I was like, okay, so it started me down this, what can I do to keep myself as healthy as possible? Now, the reality was, from probably 13, I had always been overweight. And I tried every diet known to man, do you know? And it's just, I mean, everything. There wasn't one that I hadn't tried. And what unfortunately happened was, as I went through my life, I went down different things. You know, I trained as an aromatherapist. You know, I was really looking at all these different things that could help, and they did help. But one of the things that kind of was difficult for me was my weight, because I would put weight on. I would then do a diet, and then I would lose some of the weight. And then I would stop doing that, and then I'd put it all back on. And I actually had 3 sizes of clothes in the, like 3, because my weight would fluctuate that much all the time. So anyway, I got to a very big birthday, and I was like, do you know, I need to sort this out. So I then went on and I trained as an exercise. I do something called NIA. Anyway, and it's martial arts, dancing arts and healing arts. And I was like, this is really my bag, you know, because it kind of covers off everything. And it's a bit different and it's a lot of fun and you laugh a lot. Great. All of those things are really good, because I'm not your conventional gym person. Just don't like it. So, and that's not to say it's not good, because it is just not for me. So anyway, I did this exercise. I trained, became a teacher, and I was doing like 6 trainings a week and 4 classes. And yeah, okay, I got fitter and stronger for sure, but the weight wasn't really moving at all. And I was like, no, that's not making sense to me, because I'm doing all this exercise and still I'm sort of heavier than I probably should be. And a friend of mine who is a nurse, well, a couple of friends actually at the time, said, look, we've tried this way of eating. It's really working for us. And I'm going to be honest with you, I thought they were both mad. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense at all, because it was kind of the polar opposite of what I had historically been told. But I trusted them enough, and I thought, right, okay, let's give this a go. And the remarkable thing was the weight just started to come off. I was eating really lovely food, and I was like, now this doesn't make sense at all to the paradigm that I had maybe learned. And it worked so successfully that I then was like, okay, now I've found that little nugget of the bit that was missing for me for my health. And I went on to train with a fabulous professor, and then I got my qualifications. And of course, it was at that point that it all made sense as to why I had been overweight probably most of my adult life. And it was like, okay. And I think one of the real moments for me was I was in a lecture, and I kind of understood that, you know, for all these years, the kind of the finger had been pointing at me. It was like, well, if you're overweight, Debbie, then you're not moving enough, and you've got to eat less and move more. That was kind of the message. And I was like, it was never about that. So for most of my adult life, I've been beating myself up, thinking that I'm lacking, or I'm not enough, or I'm weak, or I'm all of these things. And actually, that wasn't the case at all. I got cross, then I cried. So there was a little bit going on. I must have thought the woman's a bit off her head, but that's okay too. So because I think there was just this moment of realization of, oh, actually, it wasn't me being weak or lazy. Anyway, so that's when I went on to train. And I think the really funny thing has been, and I'm going to give you a really good example of something that then happened. So I'm now 3 or 4 sizes smaller than I've ever been. Okay. So, and the wonderful thing is now I've got rid of all of the excess clothes, so there was all these clothes of different sizes. They've now all gone. It took me 3 years to let them go, mind, because I was still in the head thinking maybe one day. It didn't happen. But what really was really strange was that it was interesting how other people saw me. So as an example, my lovely, beautiful elder sister hadn't seen me for a while. And I went to visit her, and the first thing she said to me when I got there was, she said, "Oh my goodness, you are all skin and bone." And I went, "Oh, am I skin and bone, or am I just significantly smaller than you've ever seen me?" She went, "No, you're skin and bone. Older sisters can do that to you, can't they?" So I was like, okay. So I was staying with her for 4 days, and over those 4 days, she watched they were all watching what I was eating, she actually said to me, I think about day 2, you really do eat a lot, don't you? And I said, well, I said, you probably thought I was eating lettuce leaves and dust, didn't you? That's really what you thought. And she said, yeah, I did. I said, yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, not a fan of either of those things particularly. And I said, it's not that. It's it's what I'm eating, actually. So anyway, the family observed me for these 4 days and then didn't say a word. And then on the way home, I got a phone call from my sister. And it was like, okay, so my niece had got some health issues. Can we please have a chat? So that obviously the discussion had been had when I'd left. And I said, absolutely, we can. So, and then we went on, and my niece, I helped my niece, and away we went, really. But it was very, very interesting how can I put it, that other people, mainly, and I'm probably mainly my family, really. It's just because they hadn't seen me like that before.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, I knew how healthy I was. So that it's not even about the weight particularly. It's about how healthy I am. That's what I'm interested in. And very luckily, I'd had some blood tests done, and I knew what the kind of the ratios meant. And so for me, I like to see it in action. Okay, I like to prove what I'm saying. So for me, so when people say to me how, what you're doing, how long have you been doing it? So I've now been eating this way for 7 years. And in 7 years, I've never been healthier. And I totally enjoy food. And So what I'm trying to say to you is that I like to prove that it works. So for those people that say to me, you know, well, that there's no longevity in that. Well, there is actually. But I need you to probably prove that to myself as well. So anything that I've ever suggested or suggest to people, I've tried it first. I've had a go at it first. You know, does this work? Is this easy? Because I want to know that if I'm helping people or I'm explaining things to them, that I've walked the walk.
Yeah.
So that's important for me as well.
Yeah.
You must find it really frustrating, you know, all the foods that are out there and all these, I mean, I don't know too much about it, but all these horrible things they put in this that's, you know, that's confusing us all. We don't know what any of it is and we're all consuming it. It must be.
Absolutely. So, well, it's interesting actually, because, you know, so if there's a weird woman staring at you in the supermarket, probably me. So I just like to observe what's going in people's baskets. But actually, when you speak to most people, you're absolutely right in what you're saying. That might have a lovely healthy label on it. Okay. But then when you actually dig down into the ingredients and the nutrient values, slightly lacking. So this is where I think it becomes very confusing for people. And many people, there's another friend of mine who, again, I hadn't seen for a while. We went to see them a couple of years ago and he said, you know, what are you doing now? So I explained my situation and what I was doing. And he went, okay, well, that's really interesting because I've got X, Y, and Z. So what was really hilarious that evening was he was like, right then, so you're telling me then that I can change these things with the foods that I eat, but I eat really healthily, Debbie. And I said, okay, so give me a typical day. So he went through his day, and what was really funny, he said, right, so he went off and got his cereal and brought it back down to the table. We had this whole table of food, and I was going through it, and I was going, yeah, but that means this, and this means that, and that means this. And he was like, so I've thought I've been doing the right thing for all this time. And I haven't been. And I went, the reality is you have to ask yourself the question, is what you're doing working for you right now? And he went, well, clearly not. And I went, and that's the question. So if what I was saying wasn't working, I wouldn't be doing it. I'm too old for all of that now. So I want results. If we've got results, what results have we got? And I need that, because otherwise what's the point? So I said, if you just ask yourself, I know these things say they're all healthy for you. I get that. And I get that it's really, really confusing, but actually it isn't working for you right now, is it? And so anyway, the good news is he's changed everything and he's doing really well. 2 years. In fact, I had a phone call with him last week. Amazing, the transformation that's happened. So, you know, so it's very possible. And I think it's back to that taking control of your health, your environment, what you do, really.
Yeah, and I think because, you know, like you said about your story and what you've just said there, it's about health, isn't it? It's got, I think, when you come at this from, because you're trying to lose weight, you're you know, and because you're shaming yourself for how you look, that I feel like you're fighting a losing, at least in the mindset way. I feel like a lot of the time you'll be fighting a losing battle because you're not coming from it from a place of love, and that sounds, I know it sounds cheesy, but you're not coming at it from a place of love, are you? You're coming from a place of shame, of not loving yourself. Whereas when you're coming from a perspective of, well, how can I do this to be healthy? That's coming from a loving perspective, because you're wanting to look after this body that we're currently in. I think that's a huge factor.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about it is it's and also as well, there's a lot of again, maybe because of the messaging, just because someone isn't slightly overweight doesn't mean, so say if someone's very thin, doesn't mean they're healthy actually. Okay, and there's this other misnomer as well. So it's like, well, hang on a minute. So what does that mean? And I think, and then there've been many cases. You know, I've been working with people that weight really isn't the issue. It's their health that's the issue. I mean, because they may be 10, there's one gentleman that I worked with was like 10 and a half stone. So him losing weight was never going to be an option, but it was actually, what else could we do? And in fact, he put on a bit of weight, which was good for, you know, he probably needed a little bit of extra weight on. So again, it's going back to that. Who is the person in front of me? What is going to work for them? Explaining why. That's the biggest thing, is why, and then coaching them around you know, and again, coaching them around how we can do things. But for me, one of the most fundamental parts is not doing the shaming, not doing the let me beat myself up, and understanding that we live in a world and we have to. And there was another person who said to me about their car broke down in a service station. Okay. And they were stuck there for 4 hours. And then the conversation was about, you know, how bad I've been because I had this, that. And I went, hang on a minute. You were stuck in a service station. What were you supposed to do? Do you see what I'm saying? And making it understandable and fit into everyone's world, really. I think that's quite an important part of it as well.
Yeah. So, okay, so I have a question then. It's like my mind's going, I know you said that you work primarily with people with kind of chronic, you know, helping them to reverse chronic illnesses. But would it be right to say that, you know, the kind of information that you're giving them would work for people in general, just to continue to stay
Yes.
healthy or be healthy? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that's the next part of it now as well, is it's actually what we can do to keep ourselves as healthy as we can. And actually, okay, so what sometimes happens, and I know I've been guilty of this myself, is sometimes we'll only address things when we're in a really dire situation. It's like something's now presented itself and I've got to do something about this. My plan is let's get before that so we can actually start to prevent things going wrong. Okay. And I think, you know, and that is certainly very possible. And that's where I'm trying to work now, is like, before we get there, before we have this present, what can we do to stop, or maybe, hopefully, stop it presenting in the first place? And that affects everybody, actually, because the fundamentals of the chemistry of the body are kind of the same primarily. So, you know, it's about what can we do to prevent stuff.
Yeah. Amazing. So, with that being said, then, for everybody that's listening now, I know, and I know that we've said before, everyone's different, and obviously the advice has to work for everyone, but I'm assuming there's kind of a general message, general things that you tell everybody to do. If people are sat here listening now going, okay, so then Debbie, like, I want to be more healthy, what should I do? Is there kind of some advice that you could give them as to where you would start them off, and the main things that we should all be doing?
Okay, the main thing is eating real whole food. Okay, that's where it starts. Okay, and then there's some other things that we can pop in. But sometimes I think and so the other thing people will say to me is, okay, you're saying that to me. There's one lady I can think of especially. I don't want to be in the kitchen. I don't have the time or the will. I don't like cooking. You know, I might get all of those things. So it's, how can we get you eating real whole foods as quickly and as cost effectively as we can? What things can you swap in? Can you swap out? You know, what things, okay, I like X, what Y could work for me. And so I'm still, you know, I'm still enjoying what I'm eating, but, and also the cost effectiveness is important as well. And I think as well, there's a lot of, you know, in an ideal world, you know, we'd all be eating grass fed and but that's not always everyone's reality. So if I'm coming from that perspective, I alienate a portion of the, you know, and that doesn't actually have to happen. So it's, how do we get eating real food as tasty as we can, as quick as we can, with as fewer ingredients as we can? Because again, that's the other thing that I particularly wasn't a fan of. You know, I used to get cookery books all the time, and then they would have like 45 ingredients. Okay. So I'd toddle off to the supermarket and I'd think, well, I can't get this and I can't. And it used to drive me mad, because I'm thinking, A, I don't have the money. B, I can't find half of this stuff. So it's, how do we, you know, get nutritional food as on the table as the best we can, as quickly as we can, and as cost effectively as we can. But it's about eating real food. And I think sometimes, going back to what you said earlier, you are right, actually. And the other thing in processed foods, there's so much hidden stuff. And it's understanding what those words mean, actually. And I've got a great rule of thumb. If you are looking at something, at the back of something, and there are words there that you simply have no idea what that word means, it's probably not so great for you.
That's
Yeah.
a good tip.
Yeah. If you can't pronounce it.
Yeah, put it
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, and also as well, if it's got like, you're reading down the ingredients list and you're thinking like there's like 20 ingredients in here, most of them I have no idea. It probably isn't going to be the best for you. So,
No.
and again, it's working out what do those things mean, and what would it do? Do you see what I'm saying? So that's where the education comes in. But yeah, that's one of my top tips. If it's got words on it that you don't understand, it's probably not great.
There's lots of that, isn't there? Okay, so for example, because I'm trying to think like how can we I know there's so many people just from, people that we talk to, the people that listen to this podcast, my clients, I know food is really high on people's awareness and agenda right now. I think we're all starting to become aware that there's a load of crap in our food
Yeah.
and that we don't and actually becoming aware of what it's actually doing to us now. But then you get to the point where there's a little bit of fear there because I speak to so many people, they're like, I'm scared to eat this, I'm scared to eat that, and then that's a problem in itself, I think. But then there's the overwhelming side of things where now I don't know what to eat. One minute you're told to eat low fat and now you're like, no, don't eat low fat. Like you said, like the person, the guy that you knew, you think you're doing right, but actually are you doing right? And it's just, you kind of stand there and you think, I don't know what to do. And like, I know you said, so, whole foods, but I suppose I'm thinking, so for example, breakfast, just to start to make it easy, are there particular breakfasts that you think are good for people just to have in general? And again, I know everyone has their kind of preferences and things that they maybe can't eat or they have intolerances to, but in general, are there particular things that you would recommend to have for breakfast and things that you would say absolutely stay away from?
Okay, so unfortunately, I'll give you a personal story because I think that's probably easier before I'm starting to diss other people's products. So, I believed when I was when I was doing like the exercise classes, I was like, right, so I would have a bowl of porridge in the morning with water and half a banana. Okay, and I thought that was really good. Okay, so again, it comes back to that language again. I thought I was being really good. The reality is, when I swapped my breakfast around, I now sometimes I'll have a tray baked cooked breakfast, or I'll have like scrambled eggs with some double cream. And so if I say that to people, they go like, seriously? And I go, yeah, but actually those eggs and that double cream with a little bit of salt and pepper and a little bit of butter, nourishes me beautifully, but it doesn't actually do like, so it keeps everything a lot more stable, and also it will make me fuller. So if I have that for breakfast, I'm not looking for anything maybe until 2 o'clock in the afternoon because I'm actually full. Whereas when I ate the porridge, probably if I ate it around 8 o'clock, by about 10:30, I was starting to get a bit peckish again. Okay. So it's about explaining to people when you're eating those things, what's actually happening in your body. Okay. And then people start to recognize the patterns of what's going on as well. So yeah, breakfast cereals in the main, if we were going to use one of them, that would be, if we're going to just take breakfast, that's how I change my breakfast.
Yeah. And that's really interesting you said about the porridge, because I felt that as well. I went through a stage where I thought, well, if I'm being good, I'm eating porridge, I put my blueberries in there. And I would find at 11, I'd eat my breakfast about 8:30, 11 o'clock, bam, I was hungry again. And I just thought, this is ridiculous. So I stopped, I did listen to my body and I thought, this isn't working for me. Even if it's healthy, it's not working for me, because now I'm eating more and I'm eating rubbishy stuff at 11 o'clock because it's too early for lunch. And so that's really interesting. And eggs,
but also as well, yeah, no, sorry to cut in there, but actually this is the other thing that I learned in my training as well. So again, what I would do historically is when it got to about 10:30, 11 and I was quite peckish, I would reach probably for a biscuit. If I'm being honest with you, that would probably be my go-to, particularly where I used to work, there would be biscuits and things. And again, I went into this whole, oh God, why can't I just say no? Why? What is it about me? But actually, I was hungry again. So that's actually what was going on. So it's about how do we become full? How do we nourish our body properly that we're then not looking for those things? you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's the other important part of it.
Yeah. And do you promote, I don't know, do you speak to people kind of about this intuitive eating? Because again, we could go into this whole other line where you're like, are you supposed to eat 3 meals a day? Are you supposed to eat 4 meals a day? Are you supposed to eat 3 meals a day with 2 lots of snacks in the middle?
Yeah.
Like, again, there's so much information, and sometimes people, you're just not hungry. Are you supposed to force yourself and make yourself like? What's your kind of view on that?
No, 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 we're not supposed to. And, I get this, so what actually starts to happen is when I first start working with people, or they will be having 3 meals a day. Okay. Then they start to get really full because actually if their body's being really nourished, the body's super clever. It goes like, oh, thank you very much. I don't think I need that. But the messaging has been very loud that, you must eat I know I was told you must eat 3 meals a day. And, actually, no, I don't do that anymore. Some days I'm hungrier than others, like we all are.
Yeah.
And we don't know so say, for example, and I say with people all the time, you might go down to having like a brunch, okay, and then have dinner. And for one day that may suit you really, really well. The following day, you might be, oh, do you know what? I'm really hungry today. Now, what we don't know is, are we fighting off something? We don't know that. Do you see? So again,
Yeah.
it is being very intuitive with it and listening to, today, I'm just not super hungry, but like tomorrow I am hungry. Okay, so what can I have? And again, listening and paying attention to how are we feeling? Okay, rather than we have to do this. We've been told to do this,
Yeah.
rather than, listening to ourselves, really.
Mm.
Yeah. And especially for women as well, because of our cycle, we definitely need different amounts of food and different types of food throughout all our cycle, don't we? We can't eat the same thing
No.
all the time. It's not going to cut it.
And getting older as well, I found, what you do when you're younger, some people they make themselves carry on doing that instead of saying, like I'm finding I'm not as hungry in the evenings as I used to be. So, I don't eat as much. But there was a time before I realised that I was just, oh, well, I can't waste that. This is what I always eat, and you're forcing it down because this is what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it goes back to that, this is going back to, we have to start listening, really paying attention to what's my body actually doing right now? What am I feeling like? What is going on here? Rather than outsourcing it to messaging that we've been do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it is about going and saying, right, today is. And the other thing is, that's the other thing that, again, back to this shaming language. If someone has got a hungry day, I say, it's just a hungry day. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not that you're going, because that's the other word. Then they go, oh, I was a bit greedy. No, you weren't greedy. No. You just had a hungry day. But what you may never know is, was there something else going on for you? You don't know. And sometimes you're never going to know. So as long as you're eating the right types of food, it doesn't really make any difference. But there will be hungry days and there will be not so hungry days.
Yeah.
And it's about listening to that. Really
And I
important.
just love that you're literally reprogramming people, and it's not just food, is it? You're almost reprogramming them to start self-love. It's just so much bigger than what, you're teaching them food, but they will then take that into other areas, won't they? You're teaching them to talk kindly
hopefully.
to themselves. Yeah. It's
And
brilliant.
I think the thing is, having that moment of anger and then upset in my training, and I try and share that with people, actually, because for me it was a real moment that for most of my adult life, I'd been really giving myself a really hard time. Because I just thought it was the weakness in me, the wrong in me, all of those things. And I was like, do you know what? I wish I'd known this years ago. But we are where we are. So, my job is then, right, okay, I can explain this to people and I can hopefully prevent them feeling the way that I have felt historically up till now.
Yeah.
So it is about that as well. It's about, making them, and I think it goes back to that whole thing. When you understand what's going on in your body, it's easier to make choices because you can understand what's going on rather than having no clue half the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering as well, because I know you said you were doing a lot of exercise and the weight before you changed your food, and you know the weight wasn't coming off, or you weren't where you wanted to be. Do you now do as much exercise? Do you do less exercise? Do you like what is it?
Right. No, so I'm just being really honest. Now, I could turn around and say to you, no, I'm not. That's just not true. No. So at the moment, because of launching the business and because there's other things going on, I've had to take a break from the exercising. So for me at the moment, it's mainly walking. So walking's my thing. I've got 2 dogs. That's what I enjoy to do. But after Christmas, the exercise teaching's coming back. So I will have more. So the other thing to say is, and I think, again, this is super important, 90% of, and we call it the 90-10 rule, maybe it's a bit more than that, actually. Weight is about the food that you eat and what you're consuming. That's not to say that exercise isn't important, because it really, really is. I think for mental well-being, mental health, for mobility and all of those things, it's amazingly important. But if we're just looking at the weight, it's not as important. And again, I go through that with the training as to why that would be the case. So yes, I walk a lot, but that's all I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, right. And I guess the reason I asked that was because I just wanted to kind of highlight the importance of what we're putting in our bodies as the difference that it makes. Because obviously we all know that, you know, exercise, well, we're told, aren't we? Exercise to lose weight. You have to, you know, put in less than you're burning. No, what's it? You know, I mean, yeah, you have to put in less than the
calories in, calories out.
Right, that thing,
yeah, okay. Yeah, calories in,
you
calories
know,
out.
food is just so important, isn't it? For it, it's plays such a big part. And also, again, going back to what you said and what we keep touching on here, it isn't about the weight; it's about your healthiness, isn't it? And I'm imagining you have way more energy from doing now.
I drive people mad, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know that I do. I don't mean to, but so I do. I have loads more energy, and that was the other thing. So my day would have historically looked like, I've always got up early in the morning. That's never changed. But I'd get up and I'd be fine, and then it would get to probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd think, I'm exhausted, and I've got to get through to tea time, and then I've got to cook tea. Not so anymore. So I'm up at 5 o'clock every morning. That's my time for getting up. Get loads done. Quietly clean. Drives my family mad. And then the day is I have a very, very full calendar. And what's lovely is I have more energy now than I've had in the whole of my life. And I'm no spring chicken, so let's just leave it there. But I do drive people a bit bonkers, but that's okay, you know, because I'm just like, come on, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this, we can do that. So probably drive them mad, but it's nice to have the energy. And, you know, I've just got my first grandchild, and I want to have that energy to be able to go off and do, you know, all the things I've got planned for her. Mum and Dad are starting to become aware of things I've got planned, but it's just having the energy and the health to enjoy her, you know. So, you know, I've got a grandchild quite later in life, so I want to be well enough to enjoy that and enjoy her.
Oh, it's amazing. It is. It's so amazing. And do you know what? Like, the more we get to talk to so many amazing people, and I'm seeing food's becoming more of a priority in my life. Like, food and health, you know, from that perspective, is becoming more of a priority in my life now. And the more I kind of talk to people like you who are just doing the way you're working, I just love it. And it is just, you know, it resonates with me because it's the way that I work as well. It really seems to me that it's helpful. It's really helpful to work with someone like you rather than try and muddle through this on your own. And again, I'm talking kind of like through my perspective, but it's it's overwhelming. Like we said before, all the information that we're hit with, you don't know what to do. I'm like pretty good in terms of trying to be in tune with my body, because I practice that and I do that for work, so I have more of an awareness there. But even so, like I always say with my work, you can't see your own blind spots. I think it's really helpful to have somebody to reflect things back to you, to really ask you, come on, tell me, what are you really eating in a day? Because people can say, well, I eat this, and no, come on, let's break it down. And then you start realizing all the things that you're doing, and then you can kind of clearly see just by doing that, oh gosh, I didn't realize I was doing that. But I just think it's really helpful to have someone, because like you said, we are all different, and it's not a one size fits all from all this information that we're lucky to have around us. But again, there's the dark side of that as well. And I think that the education, like you said, you're educating people as well, aren't you? I think that that's really important, so that, yes, we can understand what works for us, what doesn't work for us, what foods will fill us up and keep us full, what food's going to spike our blood sugar and make us want to reach for those biscuits and stuff. And until we're just not educated that way, we haven't been taught that, which just really, really winds me up, because we have because we have these why are you teaching us about pointless maths and all the things that we don't need, and we have these bodies that we don't know how to work.
No, and I think the other thing to say is, which is really lovely for me, and I'm seeing it more and more now, and I think I touched on this before, so when we can get things changing for the maybe mum and dad, that then starts changing things for the children too. And again, I'll use my youngest as the example. When I first went into all this, he was like, "Oh, Mum, you're really boring. Oh, I got all this." He still thinks that occasionally. Let's own it. But because I'm his mum, and he thinks, "Yeah, I'm quite crazy," but that's okay. But he would just resist. Okay, and it was things like during his teenage years, his skin would break out. And then I would explain to him what could help that and how we may be able to. And so eventually, now he's a bit older, he now sees the correlation. So if he has been eating foods, he's been he went on holiday with a load of mates, and, they didn't eat, the best that they were ever going to eat. And of course, he came back and then his skin had changed again. And so now he's got it, okay? But he now has that knowledge that hopefully when he goes on to have his own family. And so the bit that I really love about this is when, we can start working with families, and then you start to see things working for the children as well. So it's the next generation. Yes. So like I said, probably from a business perspective, not great, but my why is, let's get everybody understanding what they're doing, why they're doing it, start to get that energy, start to feel really well, having the energy to do the things that they want, and then watching it being passed down. Okay, that's the real buzz for me. It's like, aha, so I get some lovely comments come back saying, actually, this is improved for my child. This has improved, I've definitely noticed this. And I think for the parents to, we live in very, very busy, it's a very busy world out there. And I think more and more is expected of us, hours, work hours, and all those kind of things. So how can we get the healthiest we can be, have as much energy as we can to enjoy what we can while we can? And I think that's what's important for me. Longevity is great, but I want to have longevity with as best health as I can.
Yeah, I love that. And so before we wrap up, if people are sat here now thinking, oh, do you know what? I think I'm ready to actually have some help, get educated. How can what does it look like to work for you? Could you just quickly explain what you do?
The first point of call is we have a 20-minute call with each other, because again, I might not be the right coach for someone. Okay. And I think we have to recognize that. If I'm having a conversation with someone, I think, you know what, I don't think I'm the best fit here. I'm very open with that. And I say, do you know what? I don't think we're the best fit, but maybe somebody else could be a better fit for you. So that's the first point of call. After that call, we sort of go through what the program looks like. It's about 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks. And how that works. They then go away and have a think about it, and then they either proceed or we don't. But I think it's important to make sure that we're a good fit. That's the first thing that for me, has been really important to do. So yeah, it's 5 or 6 weeks. Then there's ongoing coaching if that's what somebody wants. But again, it's very tailor-made to the person. Some people don't want that ongoing stuff. Some people do.
Right.
So it's about working out what's going to work for the person.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We need more Debbies, don't we? We
Yep.
need you in the schools,
Yeah.
in the hospitals, in the doctor's surgery,
Mm-hmm.
in the supermarkets.
Yeah, no, yeah, I do.
Always see
Yeah,
you in the
like I said, so
supermarket saying, Tash,
yeah, if
no,
you spot me,
get out.
if you spot me if you spot some weird woman looking in your basket like that, you know, it may be me.
Yeah.
But I think it is. It really is. And I just want to, if there's one lasting message, is we have been bombarded with all sorts of stuff. And I think it's taking back that knowledge of understanding what's going on, why we're doing it, what it's for, and giving the empowerment back to the person with their food. That's what this is about. Okay. For me anyway. And it's watching then people start to feel healthier, start to feel more alive, start to be the vibrancy comes. That's what this is all about. Okay. And that's what, you know, that's what, so there was somebody yesterday who I'd been working with, and they've got it, and it's like cha-chong, and it's like, yeah, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for you to get that. Oh, I actually feel really well. So yeah. And so that's my why.
Amazing. Yeah, and that's so important, isn't it? Like you need to, for me, I always want to be working with someone who I know they're doing this because they're passionate about it. They have that why, and they anchor into that why every time they see a client, because you feel that as the client, you feel that as well, don't you? And I do think that energy carries and pushes you through and creates the success for your person. So yeah, thank you for what you're doing in the world, Debbie. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me along. But it's good, and it's been one of my most enjoyable jobs. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh yeah, no, that's lovely, Debbie.
Yeah, so I love what I do.
That makes all the difference, doesn't it?
You follow your joy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So where can people find you, Debbie?
Right, so the website is just finishing off under construction. We're nearly there. It's Debi Cox Health and Wellness. Debbie spelled with Debi. My husband decided to do it with a different spelling. Good and bad is all I'm going to say. So Debi Cox. Debi Cox Health and Wellness. So at the moment, if you're looking at it, it's under construction, but hopefully by the time, you know, people are hearing this, it's ready to go. But the main port of call is let's arrange a call. If someone's interested in working, let's arrange a call with each other and just see if we fit. That's the first and most important thing. And so the phone number and everything is on the landing page, but it should be up and running quite soon. It's just, as all these things do, they take a little bit longer than we might like sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll put all of your details in the show notes as well, so people can definitely find you. Debbie, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you to both of you.
Thank you.
Right, guys, that's it for another episode. We will see you next week. Take care. Bye.